Hello everybody. So Falcon and the Winter Soldier is finally here, and today I'm going to give my thoughts on the first episode. Let's go. So if you don't know, the way I like to structure my reviews is I give a non-spoiler review where I give you, the viewer, I recommend whether you should or shouldn't watch the thing I'm reviewing. Then I give more of a spoiler review saying, more in detail stuff I liked, stuff I didn't like, just kind of more in-depth spoilery details of the thing I'm reviewing. And then in a case of a Marvel TV show, Disney Plus show like this, I give my predictions for where I think the rest of the season is going to go, and in some cases, what it means for the larger MCU universe. So with that said, let's get into my non-spoiler review. So, basically, this is a Marvel show. If you like the MCU, if you like the characters of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, this is something good to check out. We're obviously only one episode in, so I don't know. This doesn't give as much of like what we were expecting to get. I'll get more in detail of what I mean by that in the spoiler portion of the video, but this episode doesn't give really like what we were necessarily, doesn't give you everything like you were expecting from the show just yet because it's the first episode. So I think that this show is definitely looking like it's going to end up being something that's, going to be important for the MCU. That's going to be a good thing to check out if you're, a fan of Falcon, the Winter Soldier, even Captain America. You'll really enjoy this show. We're only one episode in, so I can't give, really too much like my thoughts on it of recommending it to you. But the first episode, it was good. I enjoyed it. It just wasn't like to the level that I want it to be. That's kind of just my general thoughts on the episode. I think if you're a Marvel fan, check it out. You probably already have if you clicked on the video, so that's really all I have to say about the non-spoiler portion of the video. So let's get into some spoilers. And yeah, this episode, just from watching the trailers, everything that they were showing, like, there's really not much from the trailers that's actually in the episode. Like, and for a show called Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's kind of strange that the first episode doesn't have Falcon and the Winter Soldier together. It's more like you have Falcon's story and you have Bucky's story, and you're kind of just going back and forth. Oh, here's Sam, here's Bucky, back to Sam, back to Bucky, and it's like they're not working together, and I guess that'll happen next episode, but it's just kind of weird to start out a series called Falcon and the Winter Soldier without actually having Falcon with the Winter Soldier. They have two separate stories that are interesting, but it's not like my main draw to the show. One of my main draws to the show was that the banter between the two of them, between Sam and Bucky, and we don't get any of that this episode. They're not together at all. They're having two separate stories parallel to each other, and not even really in relation to each other. They're just we're just seeing both characters and what they're doing, where they're at after the events of Endgame. And I was hoping that this episode would end with them coming together, but that doesn't happen in this episode. I guess we're still waiting for next episode for that to happen, and that's kind of weird for a show called Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So that's kind of just one of my biggest problems with this episode, and one of the reasons why I don't think I liked it nearly as much as I thought I was going to. It wasn't a bad episode by any means, but it definitely feels like that with these Disney Plus shows, same thing happened with WandaVision, where it seems like that they got writers for these shows that are writers for movies. And a writer for a movie, if you write a movie, they probably get 4 or 5 hours worth of stuff that they write, and they chop it down to fit into like 2.5 hour movie to actually release it. And so, but with these Disney Plus shows, I think what's happening is that they're getting these writers and they're having them write all this stuff, and then they're probably having them write more, which is why we get an episode like this, which feels like not even like the first act of a movie, like almost like 3/4 of the first act. Like, it seems like we need a little bit more for it to be a first act of a movie. So it just seems like what they're doing is they're getting these writers to write all this stuff, to write basically like a 6-hour movie. And because of that, and then they're breaking it into parts. It's like watching Zack Snyder's Justice League came out on Thursday, and it's like if you decided to watch each part of that on Fridays. If you decided on Friday, I'm gonna watch the first part, next Friday, I'm gonna watch the second part, the Friday after that, I'm gonna watch the third part. And it's broken up into 6 parts, so it's kind of a really good analogy for this. Because Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to be 6 episodes, so that's actually a really good analogy. But yeah, so it's like if you were doing that with Zack Snyder's Justice League, it'd be like you would get to the end of the first part and you'd be like, okay, it's like you could do that for Justice League because you are able to see the next part later that day or right after or soon after watching it, you're gonna be able to see the second part and the rest of it. But with this, it's like you're seeing the first part of Justice League, and then you have to wait a week to see the next part, and then another week to see the next part, and it just is weird because this doesn't feel like an actual episode. That's kind of where my problems with this are and why I didn't enjoy it nearly as much as I wanted to. So now I think I want to talk about the 2 plot lines that are parallel, the one with Sam, the one with Bucky. So the one with Sam, we get this action sequence at the beginning of the episode where it's the action sequence we've been seeing throughout all the trailers where he's flying around, escaping the missiles and stuff. So that was cool to see that as an opening action sequence. It was a bit weird that Bucky wasn't there for that because the trailers seemed to lead us to believe that this was the sequence that started out with them in the plane, and he's like, oh, do you have a plan? So no plan.
What's our plan? So no plan.
And the trailers had led us to believe that was this sequence, but then we see it in the episode and we find out, oh, that's not, those are 2 different scenes. That's actually going to happen later. Like, the scene in the plane is going to happen later, but we see the actual action sequence of him flying around. That happens this episode, but the thing that we thought started it in the plane is actually going to happen later. So that was kind of weird. That kind of is the first thing that kind of ticked me off to be like, oh, so this isn't actually Falcon. This isn't actually going to be Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like, just yet. Like, we're gonna have them separate, and then they're gonna have to come together or something along those lines. That's where I started to think, okay, this is something weird is going on here. They don't have Bucky here immediately. So we get that action sequence, then we get Steve's funeral, I guess. I don't know if this is, like, actually Steve has died, like, actually, like, old Steve from the end of Endgame, he died, or it's like, this is, like, to everybody else, Sam is doing this to make everybody else believe he's dead, but he actually, like, went to his own timeline or something. Either way, I think that this is just meaning Steve is gone, whether he's died or whether he went to the other timeline. He is effectively gone, so we find out Sam isn't taking on the mantle of Captain America just yet. He gives the shield to the government, and he declined the mantle. He declined the mantle of Captain America, and so that's kind of setting up what happens at the end of the episode, which we'll get to in a second. And so then, following Sam's plotline, we see thing where he meets up with his sister and his nephews, who are now 5 years older than he knew them as, because the blip. Um, uh, so we see that his sister is trying to sell the family boat because the business that isn't doing well. So Sam's trying to fix the situation so she doesn't have to buy it, she doesn't have to sell the boat and all that stuff. So I guess that's going to kind of be a thing throughout the series, is this plotline of him trying to save the family boat, which I guess is going to be like final episode. Somehow he's able to fix everything and they don't have to sell the boat, and yay, hooray. So setting up this here, and some like tension between them, like their parents died and stuff going on with that. So we're seeing some tension between them, and that's kind of where that plot line goes. We kind of get a nice scene in the bank, an interesting scene where the banker is like asking, like, so how do you superheroes actually earn income? Like, how does that all work? Did Stark pay you when he was still alive? And I like that they did that, because that's kind of a thing that, like, I think everybody's thought is, like, how do the Avengers actually, like, what is their salary? Do they actually get paid for being superheroes, for saving the world? Like, how does that all work? So I like that they had that little scene there. They don't really explain it, but it's kind of not something you need to have explained. Just the funny thing to make an observation about. And so that's pretty much Sam's whole plot line, which I think that's not really interesting. Like, that's not what I'm watching this show to see. Like, it's just, that's kind of where my problems with the show comes in. That's one of the problems with the show, is like, it's like they have this plot line here from trying to save the boat, and I'm like, that's not what I want to see in the first episode. Like, that's not what I want Sam's whole plot line in the first episode to be. So that's kind of was a weird thing there. And then end of the episode, finish off Sam's story. Sam's story in this episode with, he finds out the guy he was working with at the beginning of the episode, he got he's looking into the villain organization of the series, and he got beat up by them, and we're seeing Sam's kind of finding out about that, and then we see this guy, he's taken on the mantle of Captain America, and he almost definitely is working for the bad guys. Calling it right now, I think that's kind of an obvious thing. I mean, this guy who randomly comes in and he's like, oh, I'll be Captain America, definitely working for the bad guys. Especially because we're wanting to root for Sam to become Captain America, so if you just have some random guy be Captain America, like, you need to give us a reason to, not want this guy to be Captain America, and you want Sam too. So, obviously, this guy's definitely going to be the villain. He's definitely going to be working, at least working for the villain, and so I feel like that's pretty obvious. And that's where the episode ends. And so now we get Bucky's story. We start out, he's having a nightmare of killing this guy, as when he was the Winter Soldier. He's having this nightmare, and so he goes to his therapist, and his therapist is like, so what was the nightmare about? And he's like, I'm not having nightmares. He's like, no, you're having nightmares. And he's like, I'm not having nightmares. And then they go into this whole thing where he's trying to make amends for the wrongs he did as the Winter Soldier. He's crossing names off the list. Very Arrow, like I'm getting into Arrow. Now, I've watched almost finished with the first season, so it seems a lot like Oliver Queen in at least the first season of Arrow, crossing off the names off the list in the book. So he's doing that, and he has the 3 rules. He can't do anything illegal, he can't hurt anyone, and I think the third one was like he had to say some phrase like, oh, you're helping me fix my mistakes as the Winter Soldier. It was something along those lines, and so that was kind of a humorous scene, and it also was interesting to see, like, that's what he's doing now. Then you see he's friends with this old guy who we find out is the father of the guy he killed in his nightmare. And so that was interesting. We also see the guy sets him up with the lady at the bar, and so they have a nice date there playing Battleship. But then she, starts talking too much about, oh, this guy. It's nice that you're hanging out with that guy. His son died. He doesn't know how he was killed. That's the worst part of it all. He doesn't know, and he keeps talking about this thing. And you're like, stop talking. That's not the right thing to be saying right now. And because I think at that point you figured out, even though they haven't said it yet, you've kind of figured out by that point that the guy he's friends with now, the old guy, is the father of the guy he killed in his nightmare. You figure that out by that point, so when she's saying that, you're like, don't be saying that right now. And so he leaves, he goes to that guy, and I don't know if he just figured that out then, or if, because, he sees the picture, so I don't know if, that was his first time making the connection, or if the reason he was friends with him was because was specifically because of that. I don't know what that was supposed to be, if, that was him for the first time making the connection, but, at least, for me, I had figured that out by then, that connection was there, and so, I don't necessarily know what he was going there to do. I think it seems to me that he was just making the connection there because he was kind of, didn't know what to do after, or it was just kind of an awkward situation, what he's gonna say, oh, I'm sorry I killed your son. It's not exactly going to be a good thing to say to someone, so he ends up just paying him for lunch earlier, and so that's where Bucky's plotline ends. That would actually be an interesting plotline for a separate show, is showing Bucky going to different people people he's wronged, people of, family members, people who he's killed, and saying, just kind of, helping them, maybe not saying exactly he's who killed, one of their family members or friends, but, make sure they're doing okay, help them out, and just kind of, just for, his own mind to know, he's doing something good in their life now. So I think that would be an interesting idea for a totally separate show. But obviously, I don't think they're going to do this, because there's going to be a lot going on with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So, when he teams up with Sam, you're not going to actually have that. But I think that would be an interesting idea for a totally separate show, to just have each episode, he has a nightmare of killing somebody, and now he has to go and find some of their friends and family. That could even be a good idea for season 2 of this, is Sam helping him do this. I think that would be a good idea. But as just one plot line in the first episode of this show that's supposed to be him teaming up with Sam, that's not really that, it's not really that interesting of a plot line to have. This show is supposed to be Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and you have two storylines where you have a storyline that's specifically Sam doing something on his own, and a storyline specifically Bucky doing something on his own, and it's you would think the first episode would be them doing something together, or it would end with them coming together, but that doesn't happen, like I've said before, so that's just what makes this first episode really kind of weird, because, again, you don't have these two characters, the two title characters, and they're just on separate stories, so, separate journeys in the episode, so, I think this episode, it was good, it was as good as it could have been for what it was, and I think that as the series progresses, it's going to get a lot better from this. This was just kind of the jumping off point, all like the setup. And I kind of feel like that everything that happens in this episode, I kind of assumed was going to have happened prior to the series starting. Like, I would have thought that we would have already had, Sam didn't take on the mantle. This other guy took on the mantle of Captain America. And we would have already had that happen, but instead, that's kind of what the first episode is about, of Sam saying, nope, I'm not going to be Captain America, and then this guy coming in saying, alright, I'll be Captain America. I would have thought, I think that it would have been a lot better had they just skipped, really, this whole episode, and just started in, I guess, wherever the second episode is going, and just have that be the start of the series. I think that this wasn't a terrible episode. It just didn't meet the expectations I thought it was going to be. Like, this was something that, this was my most anticipated Disney Plus show, and already I'm already seeing, WandaVision was better, which is something I would have never thought would happen. Like, WandaVision, I would have thought that would be, lowest on the list. That was lowest on the list before it started. That was I really had no expectations for it, and so not that I thought it wasn't going to be good, but I was I don't know what this is, so I don't know what my level of excitement was going to be for WandaVision. But for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that was a show that from the moment it was announced, I was like, yes, that sounds amazing, and everything that I wanted from the show didn't happen in this episode. The banter was one of the things that I was most excited to see from the show, and we don't get that at all, because, like I've been saying a lot in this video, you don't have Falcon and Winter Soldier together. They're on two separate journeys, so it's it's just inherently a weird way to start out the series. I've talked about this enough. I think that's enough of the spoiler review. I think you get the point that it's just kind of a weird thing to do. And so, predictions. I think I've actually spoiled all my predictions. Basically, my main prediction is that the guy who says he's going to be Captain America is going to be the villain. It's kind of obvious. Sam, obviously by the end of it, is going to become Captain America, and I think that next episode we're going to get Bucky and Sam reunited. Bucky's kind of going to be mad at Sam for not taking on the mantle of Captain America. That's why they're going to be mad at each other in the therapy session and in the plane, in that scene where Sam's not telling him the plan. So I think that's kind of going to be set up for that in the next episode, or the episode after. I would assume next episode Sam and Bucky come together, because that would seem really weird to go 2 episodes into a show called Falcon and the Winter Soldier without Falcon being with the Winter Soldier. So, but I would have said the same thing about the first episode, so I honestly have no idea. But overall, I think that this show is going to be good. First episode didn't win me over. I mean, it could be just because I had such high expectations that I was like what it was going to be, that it may have been destined to fall flat. But I just think that it's just a weird idea to have the 2 title characters not be on 2 separate stories. So I think that this is going to be something really cool as we move forward in the show. First episode, kind of weird, just kind of all the setup for it. But I think next episode and moving forward, it's going to be a really amazing show, and probably going to end up being one of my favorites of these Disney Plus Marvel shows. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's a weird start to, I am sure, is going to be an epic series. And so please comment below your thoughts on the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and remember to give this video a like, subscribe, check out some of my other videos, and with that said, that's a wrap.